Tomorrow night at the University of Winnipeg's Eckhart Grammaty Hall, the Virtuosi concert series welcomes saxophone virtuoso Jonathan Hulting-Cohen. Described as a saxophonist who possesses impressive and exceptional ability, Jonathan has performed throughout North America and premiered many new works for saxophone. He is currently the assistant professor of saxophone at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Tomorrow night's recital will feature the music of Piazzolla, Paquito de Rivera, Francis Poulenc, Ibert, amongst others. This is sure to be a recital not to be missed. Joining me here in our Classic 107 studios is Jonathan Hulting-Cohen. Welcome to our Classic 107 studios, Jonathan.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
First of all, I want to welcome you to Winnipeg. Is this your first time here in the city?
It is indeed my first time in Winnipeg.
When did you get in?
We got in this afternoon, and it's been fantastic so far. We got a little brunch and had a chance to poke around just a little bit, but it's been a packed day so far with rehearsals, and we're looking forward to tomorrow very much.
Yeah, nice. And apparently it's going to be sunny and warm on the weekend too, which is, you'll get to see the best part of Winnipeg. That's great. I was reading your biography, and you were a student of Donald Sinta, who teaches at the University of Michigan. Last year, Virtuosi Concerts had the Donald Sinta Saxophone Quartet in town. He must be a fantastic teacher. Maybe you could talk about your studies with Donald Sinta and what it's like learning from him.
Donald Sinta is and was a master teacher of the saxophone, a really important figure in the 20th and 21st centuries of saxophone pedagogy. There were several pedagogues before him, including Larry Teal, Sigurd Rascher, Marcel Muehl, and I believe that Donald Sinta took a lot of what they had built in terms of teaching the mechanics of the instrument and translated it into a way that worked for so many people. The artistry, just being in the room with him, was exceptional all the time. We learned a lot about how to play with time, how to play well, of course, but we learned from the best singers, we learned from the best string quartets, we learned from the best musicians that were available, and he was constantly striving to look past what it meant to be a saxophone player and looking more towards what it was to be a classical musician, especially for our instrument, which isn't always thought of that way.
Yeah, I mean, and it's sort of a total teacher. I mean, it's so great when you hear about teachers wanting their students to learn from singers and learn from string quartets, as you were saying, learn from other sources and just get out there and listen to what's happening. Very often you can learn more from a violinist or a singer as a wind player than you can just, from another person who plays your instrument. You know what I mean?
You're absolutely correct about that.
I want to talk about tomorrow night's program. I was looking at it, and one of the things that struck me is you're playing Poulenc's Oboe Sonata on saxophone. Who did the arrangement, and how does this Poulenc Sonata work on saxophone?
Well, it's a pretty faithful, straight-ahead arrangement. It's basically a transposition more than it is an actual arrangement. The arrangement is mine, but it's limited in terms of the adjustments. And I think the reason that I left so much of it at the same is that I think the instruments, though they're transposed by a whole step, actually the timbres are similar enough and the qualities of the two instruments are close enough that I prefer to leave as much of the original material as possible.
Right.
One of the things in the arrangement that I do is choose some fingerings because the way where the oboe breaks between registers is different than on the saxophone.
Right.
And so I think Poulenc masterfully uses that break so often throughout the piece, going between C, C sharp, and D, that some different fingerings on the saxophone actually allowed a little bit more of the oboe character to come out in those moments. So that's more my approach rather than actually changing the notes in this instance.
Right. Oh, that's really, it's fascinating. I also know that you're going to be playing music of Piazzolla. And in fact, I should have mentioned what it was that you played right at the top.
That was the first part of the third Tangle Etude. There are 6 Tangle Etudes that Astor Piazzolla wrote, and that was the third one.
Mm-hmm. So are you playing all 6 tomorrow night?
We're going to do a selection. So
Okay.
We're going to play the third one, the fourth one, and the 6th one.
Can you talk a little bit more about those Tango Etudes?
Sure, absolutely. So the Tangle Etudes in general were written by Piazzolla to help classical musicians have an entree into what makes a tango, and how to approach a tango and some of his other more kind of explicitly titled works, Liber Tango, Oblivion, Milonga de Angel, all these kinds of pieces. And so they're very highly notated. But it's interesting, you can watch the bordoneos, the arrastres, these tango elements be written out in Piazzolla's Tangle Etudes in a way that they're not in a lot of the other music, where it's left more to the musician to add them. Right. So the third one is very quick, and it deals with there's a lot of quick ornamentation. The fourth one is much slower, and Piazzolla gradually builds the ornamentation throughout the piece. And from what I understand, it's common performance practice to also add some. So I'm looking forward to that as well, to embellishing Piazzolla's embellishments. And then the sixth one, it really gets pretty dense with the harmonies and some meter changes that take place towards the second half. And the form of that one is actually really different than a traditional tango as well. Mm-hmm. So these are some of the ways in which Piazzolla's music departs from traditional tangos.
Yeah, I know these Tangle Etudes. There's an arrangement for clarinet as well that I've actually worked on. And it's interesting, he literally writes out everything, whereas if you were a traditional tango player, like if you played in Piazzolla's ensemble, you just do it. It wouldn't need to be written. It's just taken as a given that this is what's expected in the music. Yeah, it's fascinating. I'm also very much interested in the John Harbison San Antonio Sonata. I was reading a little bit of background behind this sonata. He's a Pulitzer Prize winning composer. Tell us a story behind that San Antonio Sonata by Harbison.
So the program note is actually quite captivating. It's a programmatic piece, 3 movements: the summons, line dance, and couples dance. And he tells it in the third person, but I have to wonder if it isn't a personal story about being in San Antonio, walking down the street and hearing some music off in the distance. And I imagine it being John Harbison, though I can't say for sure. And I imagine being a composer being drawn to that. What is this sound? And so that's the first movement, is the summons. And it's interesting because the saxophone is used, and it references some bebop jazz language throughout it, even as it is definitely very much a classical sonata, classical and piano piece. And then he arrives at the party and realizes it's a massive festival going on, and there's so much dancing, and there's a group dancing, and the music is rapturous and enjoyable and captivating, and he then is actually asked to dance by a young girl, and he declines, but he does enjoy the whole scene and enjoys the couples dance, watching the couples dance at the end. So unlike a lot of pieces, this one ends on a very quiet note. In fact, this marking in the saxophone part is noodling, so we just kind of noodle our way out as if he's kind of walking away from the party at the end.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it sounds like a great sonata. I got to ask, as a performer, very often there's one piece on the program that you're just sort of like, how's this going to go? Is there anything on the program that gives you the frights?
Well, the Poulenc always. That opening is impressively difficult. It's 4 notes, but they're important notes, and they set a lot of things up for the piece. So I think that's something that gives me a little bit of anxiety, and that's something that I'll be practicing tomorrow morning.
Is there anything on the program that you're really, really looking forward to performing? Like this hits a soft spot for you?
Yeah, so circling back to Donald Cinta, he introduced me to this piece, Ring-Hager Danse Anglaise, which was a very popular piece in the 1920s with a saxophonist named Rudy Wiedoeft, and it's a Hungarian dance. It's very fast, it's very flashy, and it's also very fun. And I love the opportunities for interplay with the piano. We never do the rubato the same way twice. It's always changing.
That's great.
And it's a short little 4-minute nugget. We really enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. And actually, you're talking about the pianist. Tomorrow night, you're going to be joined by Nadine Schenk on piano. Do you want to tell us how you two met?
So Nadine is an amazing pianist who has just performed all over the world and recorded so many CDs, and also has a long history of working with saxophonists,
Right.
which is just so lucky that we should be employed at the same university.
Right. And so that's how you two met? Was
that's
it
how we
UMass
met.
Amherst? Yeah.
She was one of the original performers of the Harbison Sonata when it was commissioned.
Wow.
So it's been a real joy and honor to learn that piece almost from her as we've gone in. This will be my third performance of the piece, I think.
And do you perform frequently with Nadine? Like, do you go on tour with her? Like, is she your pianist of choice?
She is, and we do. And we're doing 4 or 5 recitals this fall and winter, and we've done some previously, and we look forward to doing more as well.
Yeah, and it's always, you're talking about a pianist who knows the saxophone literature. That's such an important thing, and it's helpful for a pianist who, I don't want to say specializes, but I guess they do. They really, very often you'll come across a pianist who knows the trumpet literature, for example, or you know what I mean? So it's nice to have a pianist who can specify in that.
When you find someone like that, you hang on to them.
Nice.
So she's just amazing, and of course she's a orchestral pianist with the Springfield Symphony and has performed with Charles Traeger all over the world and has just done so many concerts and so many different things, and she brings all that to bear on her saxophone performances as well.
Wow. And Jonathan, it sounds like an amazing concert tomorrow night. Thanks so much for stopping by our Classic 107 studios and playing for us and talking to us this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Join saxophonist Jonathan Hulting-Cohen tomorrow night at the University of Winnipeg's Eckhart Grammaté Hall at 7:30. This is going to be a great recital. If you want more details about tomorrow night's concert, go to virtuosi.mb.ca. Jonathan, thanks again for stopping by.